Do you need help with your loose leash walking training? Today, I want to bring you a real-life, totally uncut training session with a 4-month-old golden retriever service dog puppy. While I've made loose leash walking tutorials in the past, and if you stick around to the end, you'll get a link to that entire playlist. This video is so raw that I'm actually chatting with my friend off camera for some of it while we train. I really didn't have any public plans for this video at all, but once I saw it, I thought it would be a great learning opportunity, so I made a video. In this video, we'll be using a figure 8 pattern exercise to help train specific healing concepts and start working Bixby in a known environment before we bring him onto the street to train in public. It's an exercise that you can do right in your living room and backyard to get better loose leash walking skills. It's so important to train at home first, because if Bixby the Golden can't master these skills at home, he's gonna have a real hard time doing it out in the wild. And guess what? I was able to meet up with Bixby a few weeks later for a training session inside a hardware store, and his loose leash walking skills were on point. So you're gonna get to see that at the end of the video too. Using pattern games like this can help the dog learn positioning, learn to turn with the handler, learn how to regulate pace by speeding up or slowing down, and it's also an awesome game to bring out into the real world if you feel like you're starting to disconnect with your puppy. Pattern games can provide structure in an otherwise chaotic environment. So without further ado, let's go work with Bixby on loose leash walking. The basic pattern we're looking to walk here is a figure 8. Here's a friend of mine, Steph from Tao Dog Yoga, practicing an elongated version of this exercise at an airport with her German Shepherd dog. Walking the figure 8 means that you join 2 circles, a circle where the dog needs to slow down to stick with you when they're on the inside of the circle, and then another circle where they have to speed up slightly to keep up with you on the outside of the circle. This pattern at the airport is elongated because of the large distance between the poles, but you can make the cones much closer together when you first start at home. I use 2 cones, or really 2 of anything, in the center of each of these circles. And that's what you want to think about when you're doing this exercise. We want to think of making 2 circles that are joined in the center. This keeps you from collapsing in on the dog when you make the inside turn, especially in smaller spaces. So when I first start out here with Bixby, I warm him up with a hand touch and then lure him with a cookie in my left hand into the starting position. I then begin marking and reinforcing for just being on my left side. If he can't hang out on my left side without me moving, he's going to struggle to be able to do it once I start moving. So we start in a stationary position first. All of my reinforcement will come from my left hand with him walking on the left side to ensure that he doesn't try to cut in front of me to access cookies from my right hand or my right side. Notice how I also feed to the outside of his face. This keeps him straight and tends to tip his butt into me when most dogs want to naturally tip it out to look up at the handler for food. Be sure to feed the dog with the hand that's on the same side as the dog. I also put my treat pouch on that side to start, or I put it behind my back. Now I step off. As soon as he takes 1 step to follow, I mark and reward with a high-value treat reinforcer. I have several treats in my left hand, and my rate of reinforcement is high. I mark and reward every 1 to 3 steps. Using a high rate of reinforcement in the beginning will get you the results you're looking for much faster. You can work on decreasing that rate of reinforcement once your dog understands what you want them to do, which is follow you around in heel position. Notice my reinforcement position here. Dog's head is in line with my pants, body slightly behind. The type of healing or loose leash walking we're teaching here is for service dog work, not competition obedience. I feed at my pant leg to prevent forging or the dog trying to get ahead of me, because the dog knows that where my hand is the reinforcement zone and it's not in front of my pants. And hey y'all, if you're liking this video so far, be sure to show it some love and head on down and boop that like button. Doing so will let me know that you want to see more raw training videos in the future. At this point, Bixby's really getting into the flow of the training, and I'm loving how he's responding to this exercise. Here I use feeding to help Bixby catch up. He then gets stuck chewing, so I use a hand touch to get him moving again instead of pulling on his leash. You'll see that later when we take him out into the real world. Having a hand touch is a very versatile skill, so I'll put a video of how to train that down in the description below. Touch. So I do the touches on the outside? You can tell that around here is where he starts getting a bit tired. This is a lot of work for a little pup, both mentally and physically. Note that that's at just about the 2-minute mark in our training session. I then increase my rate of reinforcement, I speed up, and I increase engagement. And then I go ahead and finish the session with a cookie scatter on the ground and some free play time. Once he's had a break, it'll be Eve's turn. I'll be posting her training session with my commentary over it over on Patreon, so check it out there if you want to see how this exercise transfers to handler. Fortunately, I was able to meet up with Eve about 3 weeks later for a training session in a hardware store. We started off with some basic walking skills, and then found this stair obstacle that we could use to teach Bixby to tuck in behind his handler when going through narrow spaces. I showed Eve the behavior, and then she got to give it a go. The full training video is over on Patreon if you want to see this section of the training. Nice. Excellent. Then we worked on walking with distractions, which to start with was basically me with a camera near him, so that was pretty challenging. He did awesome though. Sometimes he does need to pause and take a second to chew his treats because he's still a baby, and chewing and walking at the same time is a skill that literally has to be developed over time. And then we have this lovely moment where Bixby gets distracted by a kid because he loves children. And Eve uses her hand touch to get Bixby's focus back.
Talk to him.
No correction needed, just the handler supporting him through the situation and reinforcing for connection.
See how that kind of just focused him back out?
Overall, Bixby is progressing wonderfully, and it all starts with these solid foundation skills that you can practice right at home. All right, y'all, if you enjoyed this video, I invite you to head over to patreon.com/doggyu for a part 2 of this video. In that video, you're going to see me instruct Bixby's handler, Eve, as she takes a turn at this exercise with her pup. So if you want to check out some more uncut, raw training footage, as well as additional tutorials, and support the free content that I make here that's made possible by my wonderful patrons over on the doggyu community, definitely check it out. And if you're not quite ready with the foundation skills needed to practice this figure 8 training game with your dog, I want you to check out this playlist that I've put here. It's going to take you from a dog that's disconnected and pulling on the leash to a dog that has the foundation skills necessary to find heel position and maintain it with you. So definitely click on it now. You all have an awesome day and happy training.